Alrighty, so hello and welcome to the Jira Service Management Fundamentals webinar. We are thrilled to have you here for this basic overview of Jira Service Management. My name's Alexis Heritage. I'm a consultant here at Valiantys, and today I'm going to go through with you JSM's most powerful features. We're going to highlight how it can transform your service management workflows and enhance efficiency for your teams. But before we dive into the fun stuff, kind of just going to go over a little bit about Valiantys. So, Valiantys, we are a platinum solutions partner for Atlassian. We provide many types of services, including consulting, licensing, integration, and a few other ones to companies of all shapes and sizes across the globe. Whether you're working on cloud or data center, which is eventually going away from Atlassian's announcement last year, our expertise is built on 100% dedication to the Atlassian ecosystem. We exclusively work with Atlassian. We have 13-time Atlassian Partner of the Year awards. We collaborate with over 65 Fortune 500 companies. We do have a full stack development for custom solutions and for integrations. We do have the title of being Atlassian's first global partner, and we offer 24/7 coverage with over 600 team members across all the regions. So it's not just North America, we have Europe, we have all sides of the globe covered. So just a little bit more deeper. So how can we help? And I did mention we have a few services. So we do offer consulting. So our consulting is to optimize tools and processes. We offer licensing to help ensure compliance and cost efficiency. We do have integration development for anything custom for whether it's a custom solution or just for a middleman bridge. We have managed services for ongoing support. Excuse me. And then we have training to help empower your teams. Training is, for example, like in the webinar you are in right here. This is a free training we offer, but we do also have boot camps, which I'm going to take a minute just to plug in our next slide right here. So again, in addition to a training like we have right here for Jira Service Management, we do offer an interactive boot camp for more in-depth learning. Specifically, the one that's for this is our Jira Service Management Bootcamp, and this is a 2-day workshop that's going to cover everything you need to effectively use and administer Jira Service Management. The course is designed for service desk managers, administrators, or even people who do not have any JSM experience. No matter what experience you have, this course is for you. So feel free, you can scan the QR code on the screen right here, or if you just visit valiantys.com/training, and it'll also be in the meeting chat, these links as well. You'll be able to go ahead and see not only our next dates for the Jira Service Management boot camps, but as well as any other boot camps that we offer. Some other boot camps we offer are for products such as Atlassian Analytics, Jira, which used to be Jira Software but had just been renamed, and many other Atlassian products. So again, don't just go ahead. You can scan the QR code or check out the links that are in the meeting chat to be able to visit all of those training services that we do offer. With that next section for JSM Bootcamp being March 24th to March 25th. So now to actually go over what are we doing in this webinar. So to start with, I'm just going to go over a brief introduction about Jira Service Management, and then what we'll do is we will dive in and we'll look at not only the help center of Jira Service Management, but we'll also look at the agent side for not only for agents, but also slightly for administrators. Again, this is a very basic fundamentals webinar that we're condensing all into an hour. So there's going to be some things that we don't cover, but by the end of this webinar, you're going to be able to get the large overhead of what Jira Service Management can do for you. So, what is Jira Service Management and who is it for? Initially, Jira Service Management was designed for IT service management. However, that has since evolved into a very robust platform that can serve any service team, from your HR, your legal, your marketing, and just about any. Recently, Jira Service Management has moved under the umbrella of what's called the Service Collection of apps. So this collection contains apps such as Jira Service Management, Customer Service Management, Assets, and Rovo. So that is going to be that umbrella when you go ahead if you want to actually utilize JSM, you would purchase that package. And whether you're providing a service or you're receiving customer supports, JSM is going to offer you a lot of invaluable tools to help streamline operations. And some of these uh these tools that I'm mentioning. So we have things such as customer facing help center and project portals. These are going to be very clean looking that are going to give the ability for your customers on the portal to submit tickets to and navigate to all of the projects that they can submit tickets to. And this is going to be for your non-technical users, so these are going to be people who are just submitting the request, not the ones doing the request. Jira Service Management also has what's called SLAs or service level agreements. And these are time metrics that allow you to measure things such as a time to first response, time to resolution, which are things that are out of the box. However, you can create your own SLAs in order to meet needs of reportings for stakeholders. There is a knowledge base integration, so using Confluence, which is another Atlassian app, it allows you to create a knowledge base, which is just a document repository that allows you to have your customers self-service on the portal and also have a collection of documents for your internal agents to be able to utilize and help troubleshoot and perform actions on requests that they get. JSM is built off of ITIL-based workflows, so you have your request management, which is service request. You have incident management, problem, and change management, which also comes with PIR as well. JSM does have, at this moment right now, which is not in Jira software, a official approval step. So this is a built-in audible tracking for single and also multi-step approvals. So when you trigger a ticket to approval, you have an official approve or decline button. And in the ticket itself, there's an audit log where you're going to be able to see any time a ticket went into approval and any timestamps of approval decision given and when that happened. There's also queues, which if you're familiar with Jira software, you'll kind of know it's like that list view. This just allows you to have custom queries that are going to group tickets together, and this helps your agents triage and work tickets as they come in. Queues right now in some areas will only display for a single project. However, there is a feature that is in JSM that does allow you to see tickets from multiple projects in the same queue, but by default, you're only going to just see your one project's tickets. There is the email channel, which allows you to send a email to your service project, which every service project, when it is created, has a default Atlassian email address. If you send an email to that, it's going to create a ticket in that project. So it allows you to have a creation via email. You have the virtual agent, which is AI powered chatbot. This is only with JSM Premium and Enterprise, but allows you to utilize Rovo on the back end to be able to create a step-by-step if X do Y, if this information do this, in order to really give your customers a self-service of help. And then you have conversational ticketing, so you can utilize Slack and Microsoft Teams to integrate Atlassian Assist to be able to send tickets into your projects through those apps and also conversate back and forth between. And then there is also, which isn't just JSON exclusive, but we do have automation for Jira that does a very good job at streamlining very repetitive tasks. And I have mentioned Jira software a little bit, and I want to point out that if you are very familiar with Jira software, you are going to not have as big of a learning curve with JSM, as all the backend configurations are still powered by the same system. The only difference is you have those request types and few small features that give it more of a customer service management type feel, rather than more of just like a bug tracking or a project tracking software. JSM can be used standalone. However, you can utilize Confluence, like I've mentioned with that knowledge base feature, to attach it to your project and allow for a document repository connected to your project. You can use JSM without Confluence, and you can also use Confluence without JSM. It's just a little bridge that you have to be able to utilize some more features. And last plug is that we do have another webinar that is about JSM that's called Advanced Jira Service Management, and this is going to dive in even more to some of the ITIL practices and features that are involved within those. So if you go to that training website, which again is linked in the chat, you'll be able to see all of our offerings, including any other webinars and events. We also do have a YouTube channel where we do publish content, not only these webinars, so the next day after these webinars, it will also be published to YouTube, but we do also have other videos of content of other consultants sharing information, sharing certain how-tos. All of that is also on our YouTube channel, so feel free to also utilize that as a resource for any learning. So now what all of you have probably been waiting for, let's go ahead and let's dive into Jira Service Management, and we're just going to start with the customer experience, which means we're going to move over to the Help Center. And if you have any questions during this webinar, feel free to submit them in the chat, or I believe also there's a QA feature going on right now. And at the end of the webinar, as we have time, I will address any questions. That way, as time permits, we can make sure we get to everyone as much as possible. But to just dive right in here. So what we're looking on the screen right now, this is the Help Center. And the Help Center is a group of Jira Service Management projects, but let me call them spaces now, what they're referred to. You may hear me say projects, but they are now called spaces that have been shared to your customer and can also allow them to approve requests and as well as interact with tickets. So some of the features on the Help Center you'll see, such as the search bar right here and the topics. This is going to ensure customers can find the right information quickly. So let's say, for example, a customer is having trouble connecting to the VPN. If they come into the search box right here and type in VPN, it's going to go ahead and it's going to look up in any attached Confluence space, any articles that match, as well as any of the request types that might match from another space. But if we go ahead and click on one of these articles, we're going to have a self-help article that's going to walk us through any troubleshooting steps, starting with making sure that a cat is not on your keyboard in order to connect to the VPN. You do have the ability to customize your Help Center's layout. This is only on Enterprise and Premium editions, but you do have the ability to add things such as common links that could be for, let's say, the company calendar, time tracking, or even giving a link to your company's internal intranet. You can add specific lines of text that could be a list containing a guidance of what request types belong under what space and so on. The list is very imaginable with being able to add sections with rich text on your Help Center so you can make it look maybe not as bare, but maybe more of a true one-stop shop, if you will, for your company's resources. You also do have the ability in the Help Center as well as in each space, which I will show in a minute, but we can see here there's an announcement up top right here. And the Help Center allows you to add a little banner that's going to be displayed directly on this Help Center. So that way, let's say if it's like we're migrating this system, it's going to be down on this time, and you want to make sure everyone knows, you can definitely put that on the center right here, and this will always show on the Help Center. However, if we go into a project can also have its own banner customizable, and that will remove the Help Center one. So let's say for the IT service desk, maybe the announcement, you want to put the times that the help desk is working, you'd be able to throw that up top right here, and that way it would always be visible within the IT service desk project. So how do we submit a request? So you can submit a request in a few different ways. I did mention that email channel, so sending an email to an inbound address is going to create a ticket, and that inbound address by default, when you create a JSM project, it's going to create an email address to utilize. You can also create more addresses and add them, whether you want to create additional that are using Atlassians. So you can create more Atlassian email addresses that are connected. Or if you want to add like a shared mailbox, you can do that. So that way when an employee emails that shared mailbox, it will actually create the ticket into the project, and it will also keep and retain who the person who sent that email. You also have chat widgets that you would configure on external websites that will link to your project. This is commonly what you will see on big company websites, such as, for example, you go to Best Buy because you want to go search for a new laptop or a new washer. You're going to see once you go to that website in the small bottom right hand, there's a little purse that pops up that says, "Hey, how can I help you?" It's like really pushing you to try and use them. That's a chat widget. You're going to be able to configure that to put that on other external websites. Note that the only downside with using a chat widget is that you must expose your entire help center to the open internet. Meaning, if you are a private company that maybe doesn't service the entire general public, that means that it is accessible on the internet. So you may not necessarily want to do that. However, in the case like Best Buy, that would be what they would want to do because they want everyone to be able to submit a ticket. You also have the ability, as what we're going to go through, submitting the ticket on the Help Center within the project's portal, so we can do that. And then I did mention that there is that chat channel, so if you set up that connection between Slack or Microsoft Teams to connect to your JSM, you're going to be able to also submit a ticket through there, which also includes the use of the virtual agent. The virtual agent can be used both on the portal and on Slack/Microsoft Teams if that is configured, so you'll also be able to submit a ticket through there. As well, it doesn't have to be the virtual agent. There is just a default JSM integration you can configure that will just allow you to create a ticket directly and just go through and not have to use the virtual agent. But let's go ahead and let's submit two tickets to see how that looks. So we'll submit one that doesn't require any approval, and then we'll do one that does. So to start, to just go with one that doesn't require any approval, we're just going to submit a get IT help request. And you'll notice this little note right here that says required fields are marked with an asterisk. This means that if I try and create this ticket, if I don't have a value in that field, it's not going to let me. So there are some fields that you can forcefully put to have, you must fill it out before you submit. So let's say I want to know, what is the Wi-Fi password? And as I'm typing, what we're going to see here is just like that search bar we saw in the Help Center. It's going to go and try and suggest articles that are related to really try and help me solve my issue before I submit a ticket. So it's this last line of defense of trying to avoid the ticket if possible. So I'd be able to go into those and see. You're going to notice that's just matching any word I have here. So it might not be as fully accurate, especially with just using the word what, since a lot of articles might have it, but it still does its best to suggest articles to you. So I'll go ahead and then put in the description. So I'm just going to say, first time in the office, how do I connect? And then I'm going to go ahead and click send since I filled out all the required information. And now it's going to tell me that I've submitted a request successfully. And this is what the customers, when they submit a request, this is what they're going to see. You're going to be able to see this description, this details section. This is going to show any fields that I have filled in, as well as if there's any JSM form attached to this request type when I filled it in. It will also show here, and we would be able to collapse and expand it. And if there's multiple forms, we'd be able to do the same. So any information you filled in, you'll be able to see that in this middle section. I can see what the status of my ticket is. And then I do have some other options. These ones are just configured based on the workflow. These are not something that would always be here. So the notifications is so I can turn on and off. So if I don't want to get notifications from this ticket directly, I can click this and I won't receive any. If I want to escalate my ticket, I can do that, which will put this ticket into an escalated state. I can resolve my ticket and I can also cancel it if I need to. I'm going to be able to see the request type that I submitted, and then I can also share my ticket. So let's say I want to share my ticket with my coworker Rachel. All I have to do is type in her name, click add, and now I have shared the ticket with her. And coming up top here, every ticket when you create it, a ticket number is created that is unique to that ticket. So if we look at the top right here, we see my ticket number is ITSD 1274. So that is my identifier for my ticket. So that is what it looks like without approval. And then in this activity box right here, this is where I can leave comments and say, hi agent. And this is going to be added as a comment and the agent's going to be able to see this and respond. So as we go through the conversation, we'll see all of that here. But let's go ahead and go back. So to go back and submit another ticket, we'll just click in the breadcrumb trail IT service desk. And we'll go back in and let's submit a request for a new laptop. And to start, this is an agent only field, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the reporter as my coworker Rachel. And what this is going to allow it to do is that when this ticket's submitted because it requires approval, it's going to go look and see who Rachel's manager is, in which case it's set as myself. So when I create this ticket, it's going to put me automatically to approve this. So I'm going to go ahead and fill out. So the reason I'm requesting this laptop is because, let's say, it is damaged. Any additional details? Nice, shiny, and new, please. And then I'll go ahead and click in here to select what model I want, as this is configured using Assets, which is the CMDB, formerly known as Insights. So we'll go ahead and say I want a MacBook 16-inch. I'll click Send. And now on the back end, I said that it'll set me as the approver. That's something that automation for Jira is doing on the back end. And if we give it just one additional second, if I also click refresh, we're going to see it's waiting for approval. And then we will see that it set me as the approver, and I'm going to be able to approve or decline the request. So I'm going to click approve. And now I have approved the request, and now it can go ahead and be worked on as now I provided my decision. And anything additional, so not only just comments, but things such as needing approval and when the ticket moved its status, you're also going to be able to see that in the activity section here as a customer. And in order to view your tickets on the portal, all you have to do is click on your profile in the top right, and then there's two sections here. There is requests and approvals. Request is going to allow you to see any requests that you have created or you have been shared a ticket with. Clicking all is just going to show you all of them, regardless of which one you are. You have the ability to filter it by request types, so with all the projects that you have access to, if you're looking for a specific ticket with a specific request type, you're going to be able to click that and it'll filter specifically just off of those. You also do have the ability to filter it based off of status. So you have two general ones. You have open requests, which is going to be any request that's not closed, regardless of its status. And when we say closed, it means that there's a resolution set on the ticket. And if we do close, which we can also check mark, it'll show us anything that has a resolution. Or if I want to be even more nitty-gritty, on each project, I can go ahead and sort by click by status. So if I know specific status my ticket's in a specific project, I'm going to be able to click and view only those ones there. You do have the ability to edit the list view. However, for what you see in the portal, this is the only information that you can add. However, you are able to move around these fields to put them in any order you want, or just remove them entirely, but you're not going to be able to add any more than this. And if you click on the ticket, it's just going to take you to that same look that we saw when we created that ticket. Going into that other one for approvals, going to that, this is going to allow us to see any that are waiting for my approval or any that I have provided approval in the past, meaning it still prompted me for approval. And just like with the other view, I can also sort by request type, but if I want to see what I've approved in the past, I can see all those tickets there. And if I want to see just what's currently waiting, I'm going to be able to click and see that there as well. And for these approvals, you don't have to be a licensed agent to provide approval. This is a feature that can be done on the portal for customers, so you don't have to be licensed for that. All right, so now that we've taken a look at the customer view, we're going to go ahead and pivot to the agent side of Jira Service Management. The easiest way to navigate to a request, to navigate to the portal, especially, I mean, the agent view, especially if you're already in a ticket in the portal, on the portal, you can either click one of two ways. So in this breadcrumb trail, you can click on your ticket key number, or you can click on this button that says view work item. This is only going to be available for agents, so anyone who's not a licensed agent won't see this. So we go ahead and click view work item. It's going to take us to the agent view of this ticket. So agents are going to be able to work on tickets. And we can also, you can guys just ignore this. This is not a a native function. This is actually an add-on, so we're just going to hide that. That way you don't have to worry about that. So within a ticket, agents are going to be able to see details such as any forms that were filled out, any attachments that were added, any comments. So on the portal, we saw that I left a comment that said, "Hi, agent." I'm going to be able to see that on this screen. Agents are going to be able to transition the ticket. So right now it's in waiting for support. If I wanted to, let's say, gather more information from the reporter, I could click on that. And then I can assign it. So let's say I want to assign it to myself. And if I wanted to leave an additional note when I transition it, I can just put it here, whether I wanted to make it internal note or reply to customer. I'll click on update, and then I can transition my ticket. As an agent, you also are able to access the knowledge base directly from a ticket. So you're going to be able to click on view an article, and if you click on this share as comment, it's going to actually add that as a link to that article in the comment. And if I click send, it's actually going to send the link for that customer to be able to click on and view inside the portal. So as an agent, this is where you are going to live your day-to-day activities. This is where you're going to eat, sleep, and breathe. And in the agent view, you'll also be able to see what that ticket number is, so that way you always know what ticket that you are in. And this ticket number doesn't change unless it's moved to a different project. However, the alias connection of this ticket being ITSD 1274 will always remain on the back end. So right here, this is the summary. This is the quick sentence synopsis of the ticket. This is a required field, and this is one of the only fields that you cannot make optional. As along with having a ticket number when generated, it has to have a summary, which is basically an identifier of what the ticket is about. You could make this so the customer can fill this out. You can set it on the back end after submission with automation for Jira, or on a request type, you can also preset and hide it from the form, so that way if you want just to always say get IT help rather than making it automation for Jira, we could set it and we can make sure that they don't have to see it. One of the unique features about JSM that makes it different than Jira is going to be what's called request types. So request types allow you to group certain processes of work together. So for example, for general questions, get IT help is this process that we're using and this is its request type. You're going to be able to swap a request type on a ticket based off of the workflow that it's in. So right now, if I hover over up top, we see that this is a service request. So I'm going to be able to set any request type that is also a service request. If I need to change it to a request type that's not in the same work type, all I have to do is click this, change it, and then I can go ahead and set it differently. But let's say if it came in as an incorrect request type, I'm going to be able to change it here. If not, I can just leave it and I will know always what that is. You're going to also be able to hide request types as well. So if there's certain request types that maybe should never be visible to the portal because they are always created with automation, or if only specific groups or users should be able to submit to, you can actually lock those down so that way not everyone has access to be able to submit that request. Now, while you can't hide it necessarily on the agent view from being able to see those, on the portal you will be able to hide it from being visibly submitted. When you come to the agent view, if you do want to do something like that, that's going to be called issue security, which we won't go into detail, but that would allow you to hide tickets from being viewed and accessed by the restriction of people that you set. And only work items that have a request type assigned are going to be visible to the portal. So always keep in mind that when you are creating tickets and you're trying to get your customer to respond, if they're not licensed, always make sure that it has a request type, otherwise they will not see it. They won't be able to see subtasks either that you create, so any subtasks not visible to a customer and neither is a no request type, but as long as you have a request type sent, you will be able to see that there. I did mention transitioning a ticket and its workflow. So if we click on this drop down near the status and click on view workflow, we're going to be able to see this workflow. And this workflow is going to show us at what states of work this ticket can go through from start to finish. So right now we know that my current status is waiting for customer. So if I hover over that, I'm going to be able to see all the statuses that I'm able to go to. So I'm able to go to waiting for support, I can go to escalated, I can go to pending, I can resolve it, I can cancel it in progress. So just about any status I can go into. However, if we look at closed, nothing can every canceled and resolved can go to closed, but closed cannot go to anything else. So a ticket's only going to be able to transition to a path that it has. So just keep in mind for some of those that when you're working through a workflow and a ticket, if you're trying to go into a status you don't see it, it might be because that current status doesn't have a path to go into that next status. But viewing the workflow is very helpful when you're trying to troubleshoot and figure out of the next steps and where the ticket needs to move to, or maybe the path that it might have already taken. And workflows can be customized. So right now, this is just an out-of-the-box workflow. However, you can make workflows to be as simple or as complex as you want them to be, or even need them to be, by allowing you to be able to create your own statuses, which is a Jira Administrator feature only, but you're going to be able to customize those. That way you can uniquely identify a state of work that a ticket is in if you need to, based off of a specific type of process. Something that's very common that you can do is to allow a customer to transition a ticket on the portal. So how we saw that escalate, cancel, resolve, that is something that on a workflow you can make it so the customer can transition tickets themselves. So usually while transitioning a ticket is more of an agent-only ability, we do allow that feature so that way customers, for example, can escalate a ticket if there's an issue that they're not maybe receiving help as fast, or let's say that they realize that, hey, this isn't an issue anymore, or hey, I don't need this, they're going to be able to cancel their own ticket. And they're only going to be able to do it in a status that also has a path to be able to do so. So if ticket was already closed, there would not be a way to escalate that ticket. So it still functions and respects the same permissions as the workflow on the agent side. Coming down below status, we have these SLAs that I mentioned. And these are going to give you a visual representation of your SLAs. So we can see here that we have a green check mark right here. The green check mark means that the ticket met its SLA. If we see this pause symbol right here, this is showing us that the SLA is currently in a pause condition, meaning that right now the SLA is not counting. But if you hover over it, it will tell you how much time is left and to what time that SLA will breach, as well as it'll tell you the time target. If you ever see a orange/yellow mark on it, that means that the SLA is at risk for breaching, but it hasn't breached yet. And then if you see red, that means that the SLA has breached. You'll see this bubble would just turn completely red, or with the yellow/orange, it'll also turn this bubble the same color as well. Even if an SLA is breached, it's still going to continue to count until you meet that final end condition of the SLA. And if you see gray right here, so see how even with this pause, it's gray. This means that currently the SLA is counting right now and it's working through. Even if when it's paused, it's still going to show gray if it's not had breached yet. So if it has breached, we would see this red, this pause button would be red rather than just gray. And you do have those two out of the box that come out, so you have time to resolution, time to first response. And as well as for some other ITIL processes, there are some out-of-the-box SLAs that get created. You do have the ability to create more SLAs if there's more specific, or add to existing SLAs. Note that there is a limit, so while you can create as many as you want, there is a thing called goals. So right now, this time to resolution, this is a physical goal, as this is saying on the back end that for the service request, the time to resolution must be within 2 hours. So you can only have 90 of those goals listed. But again, if you have 18 different SLAs, it's just within those you have to have no more than 90 goals. And as well as having a time goal designated to count to, you also have to have what to count against, which is going to be a calendar. Your SLAs have to know at what time it should start either. It needs to know what time that it should be counting. So along with having pause conditions, you can also set your calendar so it'll only start ticking and execute within the time frame. So by default, it comes with a 24/7, meaning it's going to count around the clock. Or you also have a sample 9 to 5, which as self-explanatory, it counts only between the hours of a 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. You do have the ability to change it for the time zone it should be counting into, as well as adding any holidays, which you would have to do manually, but you can add them either by clicking and hitting add holiday, or I believe you can also upload via ICS. But this will allow you to also exclude specific days that, let's say that while it would normally fall into the SLA calendar, it shouldn't count because no one's working. So you do have the ability to do that. And the reason an SLA knows how to execute on is that it's based off of JQL, which is Jira Query Language. So using JQL, you're going to be able to narrow down and tell it what tickets you want that goal to start with, and then you'll designate that time goal and the calendar to make that SLA be an active goal. SLAs are also now pre-configured with a priority matrix. So if you wanted to say have a service request and then based off each priority level you want a specific time goal, that only counts as one goal, not five separate if there were five different priority reasons because of the fact that they have integrated its own little priority matrix. So before it used to all count as individual. Now it allows it to be one goal with a little matrix, but for each goal. So whatever goal you make, it will allow you to say, hey, do you want to change any of these specific ones based on the priority of that target? So you do have the ability to do that. Coming right below SLAs, we have our details section. This is where you're going to be able to see information about the ticket, such as the assignee, the reporter. Something to note that the person in the reporter field may not be who submitted the ticket. This is just who is set as the reporter. So if we go to history, we're going to see here that I created this work item. But if I go to the ticket that I made for approval on behalf of Rachel, it's going to show me that while I created the work item, it's going to show that Rachel is the reporter because that is what I set it to be. Other fields, again, you'll be able to see your request type and change it, priority, labels if you want to use those. You're going to be able to see any other information that you set up to put up here. Note that for some of these fields, you don't have to have them up here. For each request type, you can uniquely customize what displays. So we see this more field section. This allows you to put any fields that may not have a value immediately, but let's say it could be useful later if you throw them in this more field section. This is going to hide any fields that have a blank value. And if any of them get a value put in them, let's say that we put in for the organization. Actually, no. Let's say we'll go to components and we'll put in, let's say Jira. Now, if I refresh, it's actually going to move that field up to that detail section. And so that way now I'll be able to see it and it's not going to hide itself from me. In which now the information is hiding itself from me. No matter. We will go into one of the other tickets that I created so that way we can also see that information about approvals in its ticket history. So coming back into that ticket, how I mentioned about that reporter and who created it, if I come into here and I go to history, I created the work item. However, in this ticket, I made Brad the reporter of the ticket. We already talked about going over the knowledge base, so you do have that option here. And if we see in this ticket, there's more information. So because affected equipment has a value in it, that actually gets thrown up to the top, as well as an approver. Since I set myself as the approver, that field is one of them that gets thrown up to the top. And I have mentioned forms and that if there is a form attached to a ticket, it's going to be able, and the user filled out in the portal, you're going to be able to see that. You're going to be able to add a field, add a form after submission. If we click on this add form button, what we're going to be able to do is go through and see any of forms that have currently been created in the project. We're going to be able to click on it and we're going to be able to add that to the ticket. So that way the information, let's say we need more information from the reporter, we're going to be able to ask them and gather it in a more condensed area. So once we add it, all we have to do is just make it external, which will make this visible to the customer side. And now if we go to the portal, we're going to be able to see on the customer side this form needing more information to be filled out. And any of them that are submitted, so a request type can also have a form attached on submission. So if we were to go to this, and if we attach this request type, this form to the request type, and then we went to the portal, we would see this field, and that way it would automatically bring us that information from the start. Along with adding forms, you do have the ability to link tickets. So let's say that this ticket came from, has a relation. I think there's a relation is relates to, and let's go to this one. Very poor example, but let's say that we're requesting a new laptop because this Get IT help, we found out that this computer can't connect to Wi-Fi. Well, now we know that this ticket relates to this, and there's multiple linked types, so that way if you want to do is caused by, is a block or two, which allows you to give more of a relationship of what that ticket is to another. And on this ticket, if we go to it, we're going to see this ticket is linked to it. So you're going to be able to link tickets together not only in the same project that it's in, but you can also link tickets together that are in other projects as well. So coming down a little bit after, so in here we have this activity section. Any comments that get left, we're going to be able to see those here. Adding an internal note means that this is only going to be visible to the customers, to the agent side. It's not going to be visible to the portal. So if I put internal note here, if I can spell, I hit save. If I go to the portal view of the ticket, we're going to see that that comment didn't get put here to be seen. But if I come to, there we go. If I come here and I do a reply to customer and I say, this is portal visible, and I come to the portal view of it and I refresh, I'm going to be able to see that comment here. So it's going to allow you to be able to not only leave notes, but let's say you're working with another teammate or another team and you can use internal note to talk back and forth rather than taking it offline in like Slack or Microsoft Teams. You're going to be able to use an internal note to conversate back and forth, and then when you only need to provide the information to the customer when they should see it, you're going to be able to use reply to customer. And there is also canned responses. So clicking on this, you can have shared. So this is going to be a canned response that the project administrator made and has shared with others to be able to use. So we can see here that this is shared. So if I click on insert, it's going to allow me to simply insert the canned response that is there. So this is useful for, let's say that it's a sentence that you always say, or certain things that's a very common response to give back to a question. You're going to be able to create these and utilize them for yourself. There are certain variables that you are able to insert that, depending on the ticket, it will pull in. So in this scenario, I have high issue reporter, and this is what's called a smart value. So whatever ticket I'm in, if I insert this, it's going to take the name of the reporter and it's going to throw it in here. So in this case right now, if I use this one and I insert, it's going to actually take Brad's name because Brad was the reporter of this ticket. So you are able to use canned responses. You are able, as an agent, to create your own, but note that any of them that you create, they are not shared. It's only when your project administrator creates it and makes it shared that everyone in the project will be able to see it. And you also cannot hide canned responses if you make them shared, and you cannot share any personal ones, so it tends to keep those ones separate. In the history tab right here, we're going to be able to see anything about the ticket. So if a field got a value update, removed, we're going to be able to see that here. So let's say that I change, let's say that I change this priority to lowest. If I change that priority field and now I refresh, it's going to show me in that audit log that I changed that field, what the value it changed to, and if I hover over, it'll also give me that timestamp. So you're going to be able to see any changes to that here, as well as any status it moves to. So if I click approve, what's going to happen here after I click refresh is that we'll also see it listed not only in the history, so we can see here that I approved it, there were fields that were set, and then that the status changed. But if I go into the approvals tab, this is going to show you that official audit log of approval. So we can see here that last August it went into approval. It said one person must approve, and then it's going to display whoever approved or declined it. So it'll show that person's name, the approval decision, And then at the very end, when the entire thing is complete, so let's say that there was multiple people to approve, in the end, if everyone approved it, then it knows it was approved. So you do have the ability to also see that information directly through that section. And then clicking all is just going to show you everything. These work logs are related to a app. However, some of these work logs, their Jira does have a built-in time logging, which we won't go over in this webinar. But if you did any type of time tracking in this time remaining or original estimate, anything you put here, you'll also be able to see directly on this individual ticket for any work that was logged. And then any attachments that get added, you can add them via comment. They're going to appear in this section right here. That'll pop up. That'll say attachments. And anything uploaded will go there. Just like with comments, you have the ability to upload it only internally, so that way that attachment isn't seen by the customer on the portal side. Or if it's something that you do want them to see, you would just reply to customer and you would attach it here. And then that is how they would see it here. And now I have mentioned that there is automation for Jira. So if I click on down here in this section, there's automation. We're going to be able to see here any automations that have ran on this ticket. It's not going to show you everything, and if something does, run again, anything in the past after this list, it won't show everything, but some common ones you'll be able to click on and view directly through here, as well as any of them in this lightning bolt. This is another section from automation. If there's any manual automations, you'll be able to click and run those. And then as a project administrator, you're going to be able to, from this menu, create, manage automations, or see its auto log. But what are automations? So automation uses automation for Jira, and it allows you to automate repetitive tasks, meaning that you can have the system automatically do certain, for example, generate XYZ tickets for you rather than having your agent sit to generate all of those, and spend 10 minutes doing it. In Jira Service Management Bootcamp, we go over more in-depth automations and how they work, as well as even testing them. But to give a very brief overview, high-level overview of automation, an automation consists of three components, two of which are required. So an automation is consisted of a trigger, a component, and actions. An automation must know when to run, which is its trigger. So it must know when it needs to fire off. And then automation, which is also required, it must know what it needs to do. So it must have at least one action. Conditions, which are also called components, are optional. So while you don't have to use them, they are very essential to helping you narrow down what you want to execute on. So as agents, I said that you will live and breathe out of your tickets, but that means you will see them on what is called queues. So in queues right here, if I click on this queue section, I'm going to be given, in this example for what this query is defined by, is tickets that are created in the last 24 hours as of clicking on the queue. So we can see these three have been created within the last 24 hours, so that is what displays here. You're going to be able to group queues in what's called priority groups. So we can see your team priority is a group that's been created, and you're going to be able to put queues in a group. That way you can show you can hide certain queues, so that way groups can only access the ones they want. While you can't hide queues, you could at least group them and then collapse them. That way, if it's only needed for you, then they don't have to click and expand to see those. So just to kind of look briefly on the back end of what a queue looks like. So as an admin, you'll be able to edit a queue. So we can see here that it's being powered by JQL. So it is saying created within the last day, and that it's making sure that the ticket is unresolved. And here we're going to be able to also change the name, sets priority group. And with JQL, if you're not too familiar with JQL and you want to just build a queue, you also have this basic view, which when you go into your filter section to be able to create new filters, you're going to also see this with a lot more columns to be able to add. But as you click and build your filter with the basic view, it'll also build that filter JQL as you are going on with it. You do have the ability now in JSM to not only have a list view, but you can also have a board and a calendar view. So clicking on board is going to give a Kanban style board in JSM to allow you to see tickets. Excuse me, just like with Jira software, you're going to be able to add more columns and group those statuses, and then also move a ticket through the status if it has the ability. And then you also have a calendar view. And this allows you to tell it what dates that you want this calendar to reflect. And so for right now, this is going based off of due date. So if a due date was set on this ticket, let's say I want to set this due date for the 27th. Now we can see here that this ticket is due the 27th, and that actually has set that due date on that. So this would be useful for anything that maybe for IT onboarding requests, you're going to be able to go to the calendar view, and if it has a due date for when that person needs to start, you'll be able to see them here at a quick glance on a calendar view. And you have to enable this for each queue that you want to use it in, so you don't have to have these if you don't want to, but each queue will have, based on the targeted JQL, it will have the ability to have its own board and calendar view with it. You also have the ability to perform bulk actions, so clicking on the checkbox right here, as long as you have the perform bulk actions global permission, you're going to be able to do things in bulk. So if you want to link tickets together, comment the same thing, assign them, transition, as long as they are in the similar state of work that they can access or do those actions together, you're going to be able to perform them. In a ticket, you can also star fields. So we saw in this area right here that if we hover over these fields, we're going to have pins. So this is pinning a field. So for you, this will pin the field for any ticket you look at in the project. Similarly, way to do that with queues is by clicking on the star icon. When you hover over a queue, you're going to see a little star. Clicking on it's going to give you it and put it in a start section, which allows you to favorite queues that maybe are more relevant to you without having to scroll through a list or go through a priority group. You're going to be able to see those in a very quick, more sectionized view. And then just very quickly, just to go through for our last thing before our Q&A is those JSM forms that I talked about. So these forms are going to allow you to gather more information from a ticket. And what is different from this from Jira software is usually on a request you'd have to add a custom field in order to gather information. When it comes to these dynamic forms, you can actually make fields that aren't necessarily custom fields, but you can still gather the information. So you won't be able to report on these fields because they're not custom linked to store the data. But if you never need to report on the data, but you just need to gather it for submission, you're going to be able to do that using these forms. And you're going to be able to add many types of different field types. So whether it's text, paragraph, drop down to multi-select, date, number. If you're using assets, you're going to be able to create custom fields that are going to look back to your CMDB. And you're going to be able to put those also into your form. You also do have, when you're creating your form, a bit of rich text option, so you can do things such as bullet lists, numbered lists. If you want to put a specific link so people can click on that and view, maybe it's a additional guide of information. If you want to make a table, if you want to split out the information in columns to make it look a little bit cleaner if it becomes a long form. Any type of code snippet, an info panel. You have the ability to kind of put an indent for a quote line. You can do a divider to separate information if you have a very long form. Sometimes it gets very lengthy and it just looks like everything is all one line. You can break that up. And then anything that's not listed up here, you will click on the plus button and then you can see any other additional options. So you have the ability to add a status label, which just allows you to just put an information block and just like a set of text. So let's say we'll just put in progress, and it'll just display it like it looks like a JSM status. So forms can be very creative with this add section button. This is what makes this dynamic, is that you have the ability to conditionally display information based off of other information. So let's say that instead of in this section, let's go ahead and add a drop down to need help. And let's put yes and no. So in this conditional section, if we click on this now and we select conditionally, we can make information display in a section based off of a previously above answer. So if we say the answer is yes, then we can say, how can I help? And then when we want to end a section, meaning we want to close out, we can just click on the end section again. And now we make sure we set to always display. And now we can make sure that this information will display as it should. So if we say need help is yes, then that section that I put in to only display when yes, how can I help displays. And then if you want to attach this to a request type to be available directly on submission, all we have to do is click on attach request type, select the request type we want, and then in the portal, when we go to it, you're going to be able to see all of the information you put in here. And if any of your information is a custom field, so let's say you do want to report on it, but you want to put it in here for conditional, you can use this link Jira field, and you'll be able to link a field to an actual Jira custom field. So that way you can also store that data. So dynamic forms are very powerful. I highly recommend you check them out. It's a great way to gather information from your customers, not only on the portal, but if you create them, attach them after a ticket's submitted, it's also a very good way to still continue to gather information. And with that, that brings us to the end of our content here. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the chat to see if there are any questions that anyone has laid out for us. So something that I did get is, why is it when I make a JSM project, a Confluence space is not created? I thought they used to occur. This did trip me up. So before some of these changes with the apps, when you created a JSM project, if you had a Confluence license with it within your system, when you created a JSM project, it would also create you a Confluence space and it would directly attach it. Now, no longer it does that anymore. So now, let's say when you create a JSM project, if you want to also have a separated knowledge base just for that, you have to go and create that Confluence space separately and then attach it. If you go into the settings as a project administrator and you can go ahead and create space directly through JSM, but just know that again, you have to still manually go and create that regardless of the way you do it. It does not automatically happen anymore. But no, that tripped me up. I was wondering why one day it just stopped doing that. Can I share a dynamic form with another project? So yes, those dynamic forms I just showed you that last section. Let's say that you create the perfect templated form and you want to be able to share with other projects to utilize for starting out, and then they can put the rest of their information in after. You do have the ability to copy a form from one project and put it in another, as well as even duplicate it to be able to utilize in that same project. So that way you can, you don't have to recreate the wheel. You're always going to be able to share it if you want to and build off of it from there. All right. I'm not seeing any more questions. So with that, it looks like we are right on the money for wrapping up. So I do want to thank you all for attending today's Jira Service Management Fundamentals webinar. To dive deeper more into JSM, feel free to definitely explore our training opportunities, explore our YouTube channel. There is a lot of content out there that is very helpful, as well as seeing those training opportunities to be able to learn even more information, whether you're looking at more webinars or you're looking at those boot camps. If you have any questions or need any further assistance, don't hesitate to reach out. And also, don't forget to check out that next boot camp that's on March 24th to 25th. It's a great opportunity, again, to expand your knowledge and learn. For any additional inquiries about JSM or other Atlassian products, you can connect with me via email or LinkedIn or any of the information that's been listed in the meeting chat. Feel free to also use that for any contact information. Again, Valiantys, we are here to help, so if anything pops up after this webinar, do feel free to reach out. And if you want to connect with me directly, the QR code on the screen right there will take you directly to my LinkedIn, or again, in the chat with all the resources, my email is also there. So with that, I want to thank you all again for joining and have a wonderful rest of your day.